Thursday from Palmetto Sports Daily. We've got the dangerous duo here with you today. Kevin Bilodeau down in Charleston and Julia Westerman here in Columbia. We will hold down the fort for everybody who can't be with us today. But we got plenty to get to, Kevin. It's been an exciting weekend, rolling into yet another exciting week. We don't slow down. It's almost June, and there are still so many things happening. And that includes the NCAA Baseball Tournament. A lot of teams learning their fate in the 64-team field on Monday. And that includes 3 teams from the Palmetto State, including one down in your neck of the woods, Kevin. We've got Coastal in the mix, the Citadel, and USC Upstate. So looking forward to what that's going to present for all these teams. And Kevin, how are those Bulldogs getting ready for the tournament?
Yeah, talk about just a crazy journey for the Citadel starting last week in the SoCon tournament as they win 5 games in a row, just completely sweep through the SoCon tournament as a 5 seed, something nobody really saw coming. And really, they put together one of the best offensive performances in a tournament setting that I have seen in a long, long time. They score 60 runs over the course of 5 games, give up 20 runs, or 25 runs actually over those 5 games. So an average of 12 to 5 wins over the course of those 5 games. And it was the final game where their pitching really stepped up, a 3-1 victory over Sanford. That punched their ticket to the NCAA tournament. So big deal for the Bulldogs as they go on and now going to open things up in Atlanta when they take on initially Oklahoma, and then Georgia Tech and Illinois Chicago on the other end of that bracket, Julia.
Yeah, a lot of great matchups that are on the line here. And, of course, we've got 2 other teams that are going to be in action as well. But I do want to note people are excited about all 3 of these teams back here in Columbia. I had an email in my inbox from a guy named Andy being like, hey, what about the Citadel? We're excited here. Talk about the Bulldogs. So I've been talking about the Bulldogs too. But Coastal is going to Tallahassee as the number 2 seed in that regional. They will play getting all my people mixed up. Northern Illinois, not Iowa. Northern Illinois on Friday in the first round, and then Florida State and St. John's are the other 2 teams in that regional. So kind of a lackluster ending to the Sun Belt tournament for the Chanticleers. They lost to Louisiana in the quarterfinals, but you know, at this time of the year, Coastal can really do anything because you saw last year how much power they had, and that took them all the way to the championship series. So we'll have to see how that goes. And I know a lot of people here locally are, you know, kind of sitting on their heels waiting to see what's going to happen with the Coastal head coach and if he is going to be in the mix for the South Carolina head coaching job. So lots of people with their eyes on the Chants program. That'll be super exciting. And then USC Upstate making the tournament for the 2nd straight year after they went to the tournament for the first time ever last year. They'll be in my neck of the woods this weekend. They're going to Tuscaloosa for the Alabama Regional, and they'll take on Oklahoma State in the first round, Alabama and Alabama State, the other 2 teams in the mix there. So really exciting for them, and all 3 of these coaches talked about the opportunity that their teams have this weekend on Monday.
This is one thing I'm going to say. We are not going to Tallahassee to win a game. We're going to Tallahassee to win a regional. So if that means we go 0-2 because we went in it with the mindset of we're trying to win the regional, then we went 0-2. But I can assure you this, we're going down there to try to win a regional.
I certainly respect their program, and any school that plays those type of schedules, they got good players. They're going to be a good team, but our guys are confident right now, and they're playing as well as anybody in the country. And to win 17 out of your last 20 games, you're playing good baseball.
Our guys' belief right now is crazy. Like they believe in everything that we do. They believe in each other. They believe they can go win a regional, and that's what we want in our program. So that's what we're trying to build. So we're doing a great job of getting the right guys in here that believe in that and want to be great. So it makes it fun to come to work every day. That's for sure.
All right, Kevin, let me ask you this. Out of all 3 of these teams, who do you think is best suited to go in and win their regional this weekend?
Well, Coastal Carolina is definitely the team that has the best odds of going down to Tallahassee and coming out of that and advancing to a super regional. But by the same token, Coastal is the team. You could tell me they're going to go 2 in barbecue down in Tallahassee. You could tell me they're going to win that regional and go to Omaha for the 2nd straight year and maybe go to the championship series. I would believe either one at this point because they are so Jekyll and Hyde over the course of the last month. I don't know what to expect out of this Coastal team. They lose 4 out of 5 I think it was, to Louisiana, including the last series of the regular season and then losing to them twice in the Sun Belt tournament. I just don't know what to expect out of these guys, Julia.
Yeah, that's really confusing because you look at our other two teams that we have in the mix here, Citadel and USC Upstate. They've been red hot this month. I believe that Upstate's gone 14-2 in the month of May. They battled back to win that Big South title, and then the Citadel just, sweeping the SoCon tournament. So they have a lot of fire on their side, but there's always a lot of expectations for Coastal to play well in the tournament, especially in recent years with Kevin Schnall. So it's going to be really interesting, but I do think they've fared well with where they're going, and there's good teams in the mix there. I really think that, we could see some really interesting matchups with all of these teams, but of course we'll just have to wait and see. But, more baseball to come and more show to come. We'll be right back after this.
Welcome back to Palmetto Sports Daily. We move over to college football, as it is always college football season here in South Carolina. And one of, if not the top prospect in the Lowcountry, making his verbal commitment on Monday afternoon. That's Jaden Kelly Murray, the wide receiver, now at Oceanside Collegiate, formerly of Somerville, formerly a South Carolina commit, and now a commit of Colorado, making that announcement yesterday afternoon, choosing Colorado over a couple different schools. Eventually, there he finds the hat once he finally got that. So it's going to be a Colorado Buffalo for Jaden Kelly Murray now. As we mentioned, he made a commitment a couple of months ago to go to South Carolina, play for Shane Beamer. Not long after that, though, it was only about 3 weeks later, he decommitted from South Carolina, reopened his recruitment. I know he was talking to Virginia Tech. He had about 40 offers overall. But in the end, it's going to be going to Colorado, playing for Deion Sanders. That's what made the move for him. Kelly Murray, like I said, played his first 3 seasons of varsity football over at Somerville. Last year had 75 catches for 1,200 yards and 15 touchdowns, helping the Green Wave get back to the 5A Division I state championship game before falling to Dutch Fork once again. So one of the top playmakers in the Lowcountry, and now he's got his home going out to Colorado.
And just as Coach Prime, who will turn down an opportunity? He's a Hall of Famer, so we talked on the phone, and it was just a good conversation.
Yeah, it's his type of offense. Their air raid offense likes to get the ball out wide and give it to people in space, and that's what he needed. So I'm glad he made his decision somewhere he can thrive. Yeah, man, he's a guy that everybody loves him at the school. He gets along with everybody. He's a competitor. He wants to win, and it's going to be interesting watching him these Friday nights. So he's going to put on a show for sure. You will get your money's worth every Friday night.
So like I said, the talent is no question with Jaden Kelly Murray. He's been one of, if not the best wide receiver in the state over the course of the last couple of seasons, just been putting up huge numbers all along. The moving around, Julia, is something that a lot of people are talking about. The decision to leave Somerville after 3 years to transfer over to Oceanside Collegiate for his senior season. Then, of course, like we said, making the decision to commit to South Carolina, decommit a few weeks later, and now commit to Colorado. It's something a lot of people are talking about, on social media and in chat rooms and stuff like that. So just your thoughts on a kid moving this much this early in his career?
The thing about it is this is just going to be the norm nowadays. I do not think that this is something that we're not going to see again. I think this is really what it is. It all started with people moving around at the college ranks, and once we got kind of used to that, people have started moving around in high school. You got people putting up commitment posts for where they're going to go for 10th grade, like they did when they were committing to a college. So I think that this is going to be a normal occurrence. Does that make it normal feeling? No, not really, because you see all these guys shuffling around. That can have an impact on high school programs. That obviously has an impact on collegiate programs. So it's really interesting to see people make the choices that they do. And that's what I want to ask you is we haven't seen him play at Oceanside yet. How do we think that transition is going to benefit him as he now prepares to get ready to go to Colorado?
They're a pass-happy offense over at Oceanside. They had a wide receiver, Terrence Johnson, last year, who was first team on our All-Friday Night Light squad last season. I'm bringing up his numbers as well because he was on first team just with Jaden Kelly Murray last year. He had 57 catches, 1,100 yards, 17 touchdowns. So basically the same numbers as Kelly Murray. So there's no reason he can't just slide in and take over those numbers and put up the same kind of things because they've got Aiden Manavian, who's probably the top quarterback in the Lowcountry, if not the entire state. He's going for his 4th straight state championship next season. Obviously, the thing that worries me a little bit about this move, not that he made the move. I'm always a proponent that if you want to move, as long as you're in that area, and or else go into a private school or a charter school, I don't care. If you want to make the move, make the move. The dropping down of competition is what worries me a little bit now. Oceanside Collegiate plays as tough of a schedule, non-region wise, as anyone in the state. They're going to play Dutch Fork again. They're going to play some big-time non-region opponents. But once you get into that region schedule where they're playing Hanahan and North Charleston, it's just not the level of competition I want to see Kelly Murray play at this point of his career.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you say that Oceanside is obviously pass-heavy offense, and that's something that can cater to his approach to playing the game. And I think that's something cool about all of this is that, not that anybody's really shopping around for a high school, but a lot of people have to make a decision early of where they're going to play and is that school and, is that offensive or defensive coordinator suited to the game that they play and the things they want to go do in the future. I know I was working in West Virginia in my first job, and there was a school that ran the wing T. And if you know anything about the wing T, they are not throwing the football. And there was a tight end that I remember being on a sideline once, and the quarterback dropped back to throw the ball. You could hear the collective gasp from everyone on the sideline. And then the tight end caught the football. And we're like, we're never seeing that again. So surprise, surprise, the kid after that season transfers to the school across town that does pass the football. So I do think that there is a benefit there, that if there's a certain direction that you want to go and a path that you want to take in order to, benefit your future, I think that that's what's helpful about all of this. But it doesn't make it any less odd or, something that you have to kind of get used to as we're getting into this new era of football where people are able to kind of move around at any level of the sport. So that's something that's really been one of the most interesting takeaways for me, at least.
Yeah, no, and that's a perfect example, too. Why should a tight end who's in a non-passing offense, why should he be forced to stay at the school just because, that's what he's zoned for? If he can make it work legally, whether he wants to go to a charter school or go to a private school and make that work, I don't think anyone has any right to be upset about that. The kid's trying to do what's best for his future, set himself up to go to a college, one that's going to help out what he wants to do professionally, whether that's go pro or just set himself up for whatever's next in life. These guys have to start thinking about this at an earlier age now. So it makes sense, if this was what's best for him, that's what he's got to do.
And it's wild because I feel like the time to decide you want to go pro gets younger every single year because you got kids, doing all these crazy camps when they're 7 years old because that's what they've decided they want to do. So very interesting to see people, set themselves on that path. But it's for anything else in life. If you figure out what you want to do, you might as well just go ahead and do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Now we got much more coming up here on Palmetto Sports Daily, coming up right after this.
Welcome back to Palmetto Sports Daily. A heavy news day for Clemson. Dabo Swinney sitting down with one of his players, Heaven Brown-Schuler, to discuss his Hodgkin lymphoma diagnosis that he just learned about over the past few months, and now what the outlook will look like for him as he attacks this cancer diagnosis head on. He started chemo about 11 days ago, and then will be going through treatments for the next 6 months or so. And they are attempting to get him a medical red shirt for the upcoming season. But in high spirits today, as he sat down with Coach Swinney to address the media and tell everybody what's going on with his diagnosis. And a special moment as well when they talked about the fact that he's been able to form a unique connection with Steven Garcia, the former Gamecock quarterback, who's also battling his own cancer journey. So they've been able to, forge a connection there, and they will be going through this battle together.
They were kind of encouraging each other, and Steven checking on Heaven, and you know what? That's what football does. I know we all compete and this and that, and we all. You wear certain logos, but football is a family, and that's been kind of a neat thing. And seeing Steven and what he's dealing with, reaching out and encouraging Heaven and giving him some confidence, and it was a funny picture. He had some crazy hat on.
Yeah, we were sitting there with both of our like when you have chemo, like you have like a port or whatever. So we were like just showing off like our little ports to each other, and it was a tender moment. And we were just lift each other up every day, just make sure that we're in each other's ear, like like we both got this. Like this isn't anything that's gonna stop us from doing what we want to do.
Really special that they're able to have each other through this process. But also, Kevin, I imagine you've seen a lot of this stuff online where people from both sides of the line, South Carolina and Clemson, have been supporting both of these athletes just through and through as soon as they found out about these diagnoses. I know that Stephen Garcia was posting a lot of the people that he was hearing from, and it's a wide range of people that have reached out to him to support him throughout this process. So it's great to see people, coming together, getting over the rivalry, and just supporting people who really need it most.
Yeah, that was one of the best things after Garcia started to share this journey he's going through fighting cancer, was seeing him get calls from Dabo Swinney, seeing him get calls from Alabama fans and Alabama media members who remember, Garcia's biggest win ever over the Crimson Tide over in Columbia all those years ago, and still coming out and saying, we're behind you, we're supporting you in this. And now he's getting to kind of pay that forward a little bit to a guy from Clemson. So it's really touching, and it's cool because it's not just Clemson and South Carolina, but it's older guy. Stephen Garcia is a guy I think in his 40s by this point, and still supporting a guy who's in his early 20s, I'm guessing. So the generation's still breaking through and supporting each other for that way, and it's not just Clemson and South Carolina.
And both of them are approaching this with such positivity and optimism, which is great to see, because they're starting just an incredibly difficult battle, but just approaching it with so much, positivity and emotion there. So as he was sitting down, Heaven, with Dabo Swinney and, talking about the outlook here, Dabo mentioned, hey, we've already talked about what it's going to look like for you a year from now when we're approaching the 2027 season. And hopefully you are, healed up and ready to go for us next year. So it's great to see them, just discussing the outlook, and he's obviously already in the treatment process and attacking this head on. So great to hear that news, and, sending him all the well wishes in the world as he takes this head on.
Yeah, and the only thing you said that infuriated me there was when you said they're applying for a medical redshirt for this next year. It's like, this is something the NCAA should just drop in and be like, there is no question about this. Here's your medical redshirt. Go get better. Do not worry about this stupid thing over the course of the next year. You will come back in 2027. You will have your 3 years of eligibility, or 4 years, or whatever he would have left. You'll have all of that when you come back, and then it's not something you need to be worrying about over these next 12 months.
Yeah, they didn't even know about it come the spring game a couple of months ago, and, going through these early season workouts, they said that today is the first day of the mandatory workouts. So this is something that they caught right as things are getting started for the upcoming season. So once again, I agree. This should be something that there isn't even a conversation here. Hopefully this application just goes in and they're like, yes, obviously this is the correct answer. So sending Heaven, all the well wishes and the thoughts be with him as he takes this on. But we'll be right back after this.
Welcome back to Palmetto Sports Daily. Now, we were talking last block about Dabo Swinney and the press conference he had up at Clemson earlier this afternoon. Bit of sad news that he passed on as well, as former Clemson athletic director Terry Don Phillips passing away earlier this week. Phillips, of course, played a huge role not only in Dabo Swinney's career, but also Clemson athletics as a whole. Of course, it was Terry Don Phillips who made the decision to fire Tommy Bowden back in the day and hire an interim head coach that at the time nobody had ever heard of, this guy named Dabo Swinney. And not only did he put him in the interim job after Dabo won a couple of games in that interim season, he would make him the head coach. And I would say it's worked out fairly well for Clemson athletics as a whole. And not only that, but he was also the guy who hired Brad Brownell as the Clemson head basketball coach. So a long legacy for him with the Clemson Tigers. Dabo talked about his passing earlier today.
This is one of the great mentors in my life. Two of the greatest mentors in my life came from Texas, state of Texas, him and Gene Stallings. This has been a heavy morning for me, just processing. It's a lot to process when I think about Terry Don Phillips, because I really can't even begin to justify or quantify his impact on me personally and Clemson. Clemson will be forever changed because Terry Don Phillips came here. And I tell our players that all the time. We enjoy the shade from a tree that somebody else planted. Let's don't forget that. There's a lot of shade around here that because of the trees that Terry Don Phillips planted while he was here.
Julia, I have no way to back this up, but I'm confident in saying that there is probably no athletic program in the country where the AD who retired in 2012 still has the head football coach and the head basketball coach that he hired before he retired still active leading those programs.
I would actually have to think about that. That's a really great point because you think about the longevity there. I mean, nowadays people are cycling through coaches all the time. We're going to move out of this era of coaches who have been at a place and stayed at a place for a really long time. And it's also interesting to think about, a lot of these, historic coaches get all this credit for the things that they did in these amazing careers. You think about somebody like Nick Saban at Alabama, huge. But you forget about the person who hired him and the fact that they wouldn't have been able to have that great career that they had they not been hired by somebody who just, took some initiative and believed in them. So it's great that that's something that Dabo talks about all the time. He talked about Phillips being one of his mentors along with Gene Stallings. And I feel like he's constantly talking about both of those guys all the time and the things that they taught him. So it's great that he keeps their memory alive, especially now that Phillips has passed on. But that's something that you can tell that Dabo is very, very grateful for.
Yeah, and you could tell Terry Don had his back right from the beginning because I remember Dabo's first game as the interim head coach. Terry Don was there on the sidelines to his detriment at some point. Some people were very upset about this, but he was there yelling and screaming at the refs along with Dabo Swinney as things weren't going his way in that first game. That's going to wrap it up for today's edition of Palmetto Sports Daily. We'll see you right back here tomorrow.